Hello everyone, this is part 16 of What If Naruto Was the Perfect Shinobi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Hyuga Hinata is unable to continue the match. The winner is Tenten. Naruto cracked his N at his post in the arena's upper level as he observed the latest matches ending with a passing interest, scowling underneath his mask. The Anbu wasn't at the tournament to watch the competition, but the ongoing matches gave him something to concentrate on other than the irritating pain resonating in his curse seal. He wasn't sure why the damn thing had reactivated, but it was getting on his nerves not a little. Just what I needed, a distraction when I'm supposed to be keeping a lookout. Naruto almost hoped that Orochimaru would make his inevitable appearance and start the windmill churning. All the waiting was driving the demon container nuts, and he was more than willing to rest some skulls. He let out a small yawn as a bruised Tenten returned to the competitors section and the examiner helped Hinata back upright. The packed spectators gave the victor polite applause, though Naruto could see that both Hyuga Hiyashi and that little girl he had run into while intimidating Kankuro and Temari a while back were observing the scene with some distaste. The next match will be Uchiha Sasuke vs Sabaku no Gaara. The Kyuubi vessel let out a knowing sneer as the crowd went into an uproar when the examiner called out Sasuke's name. All those poor villagers were going to be about as crushed as the Uchiha when the match ended. He turned his attention to the cage's viewing area on a high terrace, where the Sandaime and the traitorous Kazekage sat peering down into the Colosseum. The old Hokage had but a single shinobi serving as his personal protector, which was something that Naruto couldn't even begin to comprehend. Perhaps Sarutobi wanted to maintain the illusion that he was still ignorant to the other man's treacherous intentions. An approaching group caused the masked shinobi to revert his attention to the near stairwell. Man, I'm telling you guys, that Gaara kid's gonna L Uchiha a new asshole. Naruto bit his lip as he heard Kiba's voice booming through the corridor despite the crowd noise and leaned against a shadowed pillar to conceal his position somewhat. The loud Inuzuka came barreling down the stairs a moment later alongside Shikamaru and Chuji. The Akamaiki reached into his ever-present paper bag and crammed several potato chips into his mouth, waving the small container around and ranting as he chewed. Naruto wrinkled his nose in distaste as the overweight genin spewed some chewed-up potato onto the mutt's shirt due to his excitement. Shikamaru brought up the rear, seeming to have no interest in participating in their conversation and instead staring out into space with his hands laced behind his head. I dunno, Kiba, Sasuke is the strongest rookie this year. Don't count him out. Kiba scowled down at his shirt and brushed the mess loose. Naruto then sensed another, much stronger presence approaching down the corridor at a slower pace, but paid the newcomer little mind as he continued listening to his ex-classmates' discussion. Faye, he's overrated as hell. Naruto slapped him around like a little bee when our teams had a sparring match a while back. A pedigree doesn't make a good shinobi. The mutt almost sounded philosophical as he spoke. Chuji swallowed his chips with an audible gulp and shrugged his broad shoulders. I guess, but that's Naruto. Dad said there's something not right about him, and I agree with him. I know he's your teammate and all that, but... Naruto bristled underneath his mask at the pig's words, not that he was all too surprised. The Juan on his N burned and tingled in stereo with his anger. The young Anbu well understood that the Akamaiki were among his more vitriolic detractors in Konoha, as the clan's losses had been among the highest during the Kyuubi's onslaught. That Akamaiki chooser had poisoned his son against the demon carrier was to be expected, even though Naruto too had never done much to win the kid's good graces with his attitude either. Chuji was too good-natured to resort to direct insults, but his opinion regarding Naruto was still clear enough. Kiba's expression darkened, but whatever retort he might have had in mind was silenced with a new arrival. Blood, K. Sabaku no Gaara's voice came as a demented whisper. His bloodshot green eyes were alive with cruel intent and a wide, lopsided grin marred his visage. The Ichibi container regarded the three Konoha genin as a spider might regard small insects trapped in its web. Kiba and the others had been cursed with the bad luck to have crossed into Gaara's path as the latter stalked down towards the arena alone, unable to move a muscle due to his sudden and massive king intent. Akamaru's scared whimpering was all that broke the silence. The telltale sand then poured out through the opening in the redhead's gourd and slid along the ground, taunting the three captives, and then rose up without warning and struck at the trio like a coiled serpent. I always seem to get stuck playing the hero. For once, I wish I could be somewhere else. Naruto knew that he was going to have to stop Gaara, though he might have been more willing to ignore the situation and let the other demon vessel have his meal had Kiba not been among the Suna Shinobi's potential victims. He owed Chuji and Shikamaru nothing, to be sure, and he was still a little irritated with the ingratitude Nara had shown him the last time he'd helped Team Asuma. Cease your complaining, brat. You're the one who's been spoiling for action. The masked shinobi snorted within his thoughts at the intruding kitsune and used the Akuma Shunshin to materialize between the incoming sand, tentacle and the three stooges with a vibrant red chakra swirl, drawing his Anbu katana to slash the compacted sand asunder. The granular matter scattered onto the ground near Gaara and Naruto remained standing with his blade unsteadied. That will be enough, Gaara-san. Proceed to the arena at once, or there will be trouble. As though to underscore his demand, Naruto concentrated his demonic king intent into a single sharp point and sent it lancing straight towards the other Jinchuriki. Gaara snarled at being given an order and began gathering his sand once more, this time in an attempt to crush the interloping Anbu, but stopped short as the mental spike punctured clean between his maddened eyes. The collected sand dropped to the ground as Gaara covered his eyes with both hands and staggered back several steps, his visage vacant and his voice muttering to some unseen person. Kiba and the others were released and took a couple steps back as well, but to the masked Naruto's chagrin, hung around to watch the show. Drawing upon his own experiences, the Anbu was able to guess that Gaara was in conversation with his inner demon. Mother, no, please, I want, him, mother. Naruto raised a brow beneath his terracotta mask as he listened to his opponent. The sand twitched about in violent convulsions on the ground. The Kyuubi vessel contemplated sheathing his katana in Gaara's heart and having done with it, as whatever mechanism controlled his sand seemed to be compromised at the moment, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. Then again, Naruto had no current orders to K the Sand Nin, and had to admit being curious as to what role the red-headed sociopath would have in Orochimaru's current scheme, and he also still wanted to see Gaara mangle Sasuke and break Konoha's heart. Assassinating the Kazekige's son without the Hokage's express directive would bring serious trouble down onto his head regardless, even though Gaara had provoked the encounter. He took a dip into his subconscious to discuss the current phenomenon. Unless I'm mistaken, Gaara thinks that Ichibi no Tanuki is his mother. The Ninetales roared out a mocking laugh inside Naruto's mind at hearing Gaara's insane sniveling. The Konoha Anbu's eyes glowed a deep crimson through his mask due to the creature's augmented presence within his active consciousness. He stood with his back to Kiba and the others, so the three weren't able to see the change in his eyes. So that's how Shukaku has kept the little churl in line all this time. I'll eat that craven rodent alive for certain, using such a pathetic trick. The shameless rat brings disgrace upon all the tailed demons. Moments later, Gaara's schizophrenic ramblings ceased and he glared at the masked Naruto. His malicious intent washed over the rookie Anbu in a wave, who remained calm where he stood. The redhead's concentrated king intent was no worse than Orochimaru's passive aura, and was no longer enough to bother the Kyuubi container. Bloodshot green and burning crimson remained locked in a silent duel, and Naruto's cursed seal throbbed in anticipation. But then, the disguised blonde was relieved when Gaara broke their staring contest and brushed past him with a scowl, the sand along the ground moving to envelop him in a loose shroud. The three scared genin scurried aside to allow the brooding sociopath passage, though Chuji wasn't quick enough in doing so and the lingering sand lashed out and slammed him into a wall with a violent thud. TCH, that Gaara kid creeps me out even worse than Uzumaki. Troublesome bastard. Shikamaru let out an exasperated sigh and thrust his hands into his pockets as Sabaku no Gaara vanished down the stairwell leading into the arena. The Nara was still unblemished, having again lucked out in being paired against Zaku Abumi, who never appeared to compete due to the wounds he'd incurred during the preliminaries in his win over Chuji. And thus he would be in the semis without even having stepped into the ring once. Naruto glanced in his direction, willing his eyes to return to their henged brown color, something harder than usual due to his sudden urge to maim Shikamaru. Kiba was breathing hard, slumped against the wall and didn't appear to have heard him. The Inuzuka turned to the Anbu when he regained his composure as Shikamaru attempted to revive the downed Chuji. That clinches it. I really am going to feed that worthless little ingrate to Manda. Hey, thanks a lot, Anbu-san. That nutcase would have cared us all without you. Naruto inclined his masked head in solemn acknowledgement, adopting both a rigid posture and businesslike vocal tone as he sheathed his katana. The weapon's composite steel blade shimmered in the sunlit corridor and slid back into its holster with almost no noise. The young Anbu allowed a slight grin at his new sword's superior make. You're welcome, though I'd like to ask you three to return to your seats as soon as possible. As you've seen a moment ago, it can be rather dangerous to wander the corridors with all these outside shinobi lurking about. Kiba blinked and stared at Naruto a long moment, causing the demon vessel to have to restrain a curse. He hadn't thought to mask his actual voice, as he hadn't ever needed to until that point. Now he needed to get these three to leave and soon, or else the mutt would see past his act, which would create a hassle that he wasn't much inclined to cope with at the moment. Naruto resolved to come clean with his ex-teammates about his new position once the battle was over and things had settled down, but now there was a critical mission to conduct and personal issues had to take a backseat to business. We weren't wandering. We wanted to go and check on Hinata-chan. So that was the reason behind the mutt having such a strange expression. He was still nursing his little crush on Hinata. Naruto smirked under his mask, a little cheered to realize that his acting wasn't as terrible as he'd thought a moment prior. The Anbu pointed towards the concrete stairwell that Gaara had gone down. Ah, I see. The triage station is downstairs and to the right, near the arena entrance. Kiba shuddered and turned to look out into the arena, shaking his head in the negative. Quote. On second thought, I think we should wait a while and let the medics do their work. Naruto knew that Hinata wasn't hurt enough to need serious medical attention, and that Kiba and the others weren't willing to chance stumbling into Gaara again. A piercing howl then rang through the area, seeming to originate in the downstairs corridor. Akamaru let out a low whine in unison with the TD scream. The Anbu shook his head, none too pleased with having to waste his time with this when he needed to be keeping his current post and attempting to locate Orochimaru. No, someone help me. Please. A second panicked voice shouted out at the same location. Naruto was able to guess what had happened to the two hapless victims, but was obligated to go and take a look regardless. Muttering under his breath about unwanted distractions, the masked shinobi moved to regard the genin trio as he turned towards the stairwell. This time, his tone was much less polite, giving orders rather than making requests. Get back to your seats, now. This isn't a request. Naruto strode into the staircase without another word, again drawing his katana. The Jinchuriki smelled blood through his chameleon mask as he rounded the stairs. Upon reaching the scene, he saw the scene he had anticipated. Blood mixed with sand was splattered along the stone ground, with some stuck to the walls as well. He spied two hidden grass Hitai-8 among the mess, as well as two kunai and a wakizashi. Some Kusanin had attempted to attack Gaara and had gotten killed themselves, it seemed. That Gaara has some issues. Though I'm sure you'd know all about that, Naruto-kun. The masked demon container's breath caught and he whirled about on the spot, averting his gaze to where a smirking Yakushi Kabuto leaned against the wall. That rat shouldn't have known who he was. Naruto eyeballed Kabuto through his mask as the silver-haired genin strolled down the corridor without a care in the world and stopped next to the arena entrance, walking into the sunlight. The lone Anbu shouldered his katana and allowed his king intent to wash over the other shinobi and answering the man in a calculating voice. You're treading on thin ice, Yakushi. That knowledge is illegal to even possess, much less repeat in public. I could execute you where you stand. Kabuto remained amused, pushing his glasses up his nose and reaching into his pocket. Naruto looked past him into the arena where Gaara stood scowling with his arms crossed. Most conspicuous in his absence was one Uchiha Sasuke. A strange sensation washed over the Kyuubi container, warning him that things were about to explode. The tension inside the arena was thick enough to cut with a kunai. Perhaps you're right. But I don't think you have much time to bother with me. Naruto gave a dangerous sneer through his mask, coupled with a dark chuckle. The Juan marring his end seemed to purr in tune with his malicious intentions. The pain lowered to a dull ache, almost soothing him, as though Orochimaru's Vile chakra were rewarding his dark thoughts. The rookie Anbu considered the potential meaning behind Kabuto's vague words and elected to pretend ignorance in what he thought to be a vain attempt to lure the other man out into the open. I couldn't care less about watching these stupid tournament matches. I might not have all the time in the world, but I have more than enough to smack you around a little. I'd suggest you stop fing around with me, or you'll learn the reason villagers and shinobi alike curse me as a demon. Kabuto's black eyes glittered beneath his glasses, acknowledging and accepting the younger shinobi's challenge. His knowing smirk remained unchanged, which led Naruto to believe that he did know about his condition. Not too surprising, seeing as the man seemed to excel at gathering intel. Yakushi responded in a saccharine tone, as though he were a grown-up chiding a small child. He sounded too much like Orochimaru. Naruto's rage blazed again, and his cursed seal responded with the same burning sensation as the last time. For a moment, he wanted nothing more than to strangle this smug little bastard. Please don't patronize me like that, Naruto-kun, it's most insulting. You and your masked cohorts still haven't managed to locate Orochimaru-sama. And because he's still at large, you can't waste your precious time crossing kunai with someone like little old me. So it's Orochimaru-sama, I see, that was way too easy, even assuming he's a genin. Disguised brown eyes narrowed in suspicion underneath the terracotta mask. Naruto understood that Kabuto had seen past the obvious bait, but had chosen to take it nonetheless. Still, the ANBU's own role in this little mind game was more obvious still, even though he realized on some level that Kabuto was the one leading him on instead. He schooled his anger down as he'd done countless times in the past when dealing with Konoha's villagers, realizing that he would need a lucid mind to succeed in this battle. Naruto pointed his katana between the silver-haired turncoat's bespectacled eyes. The Juin protested his actions, but the Jinchuriki ignored the pain in his need to get answers. Now that you've all but admitted to being in league with that traitor, you'll tell me where that serpent's hiding and what you know about his plans, or else I will kill you right here and now. Kabuto raised a hand and pushed the blade aside, pinning the steel tip against the stone wall with more strength than Naruto would have guessed him to have. The Uchiha still hadn't arrived in the arena, and the assembled crowd was becoming more and more mutinous as each second passed. His other hand, still in his pocket, then emerged, with Yakushi holding a single card between two digits. The older shinobi rubbed the thin item with his thumb, using his chakra to reveal its hidden contents and then holding it outward in a clear inviting gesture. Here, this ought to tell you what you want to know, assuming you're sharp enough. Naruto scowled and snatched the card, giving Kabuto a paper cut. Yakushi glared with irritation and closed the minor wound with a medical ninjutsu while the masked Kyuubi container examined the card, keeping his critical brown gaze locked on Kabuto all the while. He had expected the card to be about Orochimaru, but that wasn't the case. The image seemed to be an older-looking and somewhat more calculating Gaara, with black eyes rather than the Ichibi container's brilliant green. The Yondaime Kazekage. His initial impulse was to backhand Kabuto over having wasted his valuable time with this irrelevant man, but two words on the card then leapt out at him. Status, deceased. But that shouldn't be possible seeing as he's sitting out there. Unless. The ANBU's mind traveled back to a month ago, when Orochimaru had snuck into the exams using a Kusa Genin's skin and likeness. To M the fourth Kazekage and utilize the same method in order to get within striking distance to the Hokage was well within the Serpentine Madman's capabilities. The ruthless Sannin would have no compunction whatsoever about stabbing his co-conspirator in the back to advance his own agenda, and the Jinchuriki had to admit that it was an ingenious stratagem. Kabuto nodded in agreement with Naruto's conclusion. That's right. Orochimaru-sama is here, and he's sitting in the best seat in the house. The demon carrier then adopted a conversational tone, having gotten the intel he wanted. Now all he had to do was handle the loose end. His cursed seal hummed in approval. Meanwhile, outside in the arena, Examiner Shiranui Genma announced that there would be extra time allotted to allow Sasuke to arrive. Naruto got a bitter taste in his mouth when seeing such blatant bias exhibited towards the little genius and decided to spit the resulting venom onto the closest available target. You know, a good little minion wouldn't be spilling his master's secrets like this. Kabuto's sarcastic smile remained, and he released his hold on Naruto's katana with a nonchalant shrug. The Anbu sheathed the blade with one hand, no longer needing to keep his weapon drawn given the change in the overall situation. Please don't misunderstand me, Naruto-kun. I'm curious to see how you're going to handle this little scenario, that's all. We'll know then whether or not you can realize the expectations Orochimaru-sama has set. Naruto scowled underneath his mask at being reminded about Orochimaru's schemes concerning him. He wasn't that serpent's little pawn like Kabuto. And besides, the Sannin would be a corpse soon enough, and then his expectations wouldn't matter in the least. The seal sent an agonizing lurch through the demon vessel with that thought, but the Anbu was able to overcome the sudden attack without showing an outward sign as he held out the chakra card to Kabuto, returning it in the same manner that it had been given. Yakushi reached out to take it, and in doing so, sealed his own doom. HRM? Well, I wouldn't want you to misread me either, so, traitor. The masked shinobi's arm reached past Kabuto's hand and gripped his wrist, and Naruto used the snake hand to send out his special red serpents. The snakes coiled around Yakushi and bound him on the spot, and one sank its perilous bite into the undercover mole's tea. Kabuto's black eyes widened behind his glasses, and he gave one violent spasm as the venom rushed to his heart. He then slumped over in the serpent's coiling hold. Meanwhile, the residual poison ate through his skin and muscle like acid. Soon enough, the entire corridor was rank with a decadent stench. Naruto smirked as he considered using a minor wind jutsu to blow the horrid odor out into the stands and the villages. He repressed the urge, however, in his zeal to get into a position to counter the coming attack. The ANBU's gut told him that the attack would be coming soon. As he moved towards the stairwell, Naruto took one last look at Yakushi Kabuto's remains. Your master will be with you soon enough, so at least you won't have to be alone. The masked Naruto then rushed back to the next level at top speed. As he moved, he heard a loud cheering that indicated that the hero had arrived. Once he was gone, another Anbu wearing a tiger mask and a hooded robe emerged in the corridor, having stood outside the arena entrance underneath the shadow that the large concrete stands provided while eavesdropping on the earlier scene. He removed his own mask, revealing a young man with silver hair and glasses, a sinister smile and a chuckle on his lips. Yakushi Kabuto reached into his robes and withdrew a certain storage scroll, sparing a quick irritated glance at the ravaged remains on the ground. Most impressive, Naruto-kun. Yes, I think you're going to make things much more interesting. Assuming you survive long enough. The crowd went wild outside, as the much-anticipated bout between Uchiha Sasuke and Sabaku no Gaara commenced. Little could the unassuming villagers and aristocrats have known that the real main event would be coming soon as well. Kabuto replaced his misappropriated mask, resolving that the spare corpse on the ground was too compromised to be salvaged, and likewise disappeared in swirling leaves using the Konoha Shunshin. Like Naruto-kun, he too had an important mission to execute. XXXXXXXXXX. Minutes later, Naruto had taken a crouching position close to the cage's viewing area. He knew that he was breaking Anbu regulations with what he was planning, a lone surprise assault on Orochimaru the moment the Serpent Man made his move. The Jinchuriki would have liked to have moved with his team, but there had been no time to seek out his captain and assemble an attack unit. His intentions were good enough, and he was certain that his violation would be overlooked when he skewered the snake Sannin on his katana. Protecting the Hokage overruled the need to adhere to rigid protocol. The match still continued in the arena. Since you're willing to go this far, Gaki, you should make your attack right now while the serpent isn't expecting you. There's no point in waiting for him to move, he'll be on his guard then. His powers are superior to yours, and an attack then will end in your death, and more importantly than that, my death. The vessel had considered such a sneak attack, but chose not to make his move until Orochimaru revealed his intentions. No matter what the reason, and even though the man underneath those white and blue ceremonial hat and robes was an impostor, appearance sometimes counted as much as the real circumstances, and to attempt to assassinate the Kazekage in his chair without provocation on his part was impossible. That can't be done. Until he makes his move, he is still the Kazekage and can't be touched. Unless you want to see us executed as a diplomatic concession. Besides, I can K him no matter what. I'm in a perfect position. I'll be on him before he can react. The demon spat inside his cage, but his voice indicated some sardonic amusement mixed in with the usual disdain. Perhaps the Ninetales realized that there was some logic to what his container had argued. The QB abhorred death, but he would much rather have his personal avatar meet it in a glorious battle than on the executioner's block. Bah, you mortals and your disgusting moral scruples. Do as you like then, brat. Morals have nothing to do with it. I just don't want to s like a fool, so don't withhold help from me again like the last time. The battle down on the ground seemed to be reaching a stalemate. Naruto had paid little mind to the ongoing match overall, and had missed the opening exchanges while rushing across the Colosseum to reach his present position. From what he could gather, Gaara was having a much harder time than anticipated against the Uchiha, whose speed had improved so much over the last month that he was able to outrun the Suna Genin's protective mechanism, though his overall technique was still lacking a little. Sasuke had panicked Gaara enough to cause him to create a spherical sand cocoon to surround him, allowing the Ichibi vessel yet greater protection but also rendering him unable to move. Whenever the Uchiha attempted to approach, razor-sharp tendrils lanced outward to repel him, and his ranged attacks availed nothing against Gaara's hard shell. Sasuke then withdrew and moved along the arena wall near to the crowd and began making hand signs. Let's see what Kakashi has taught the fool, then, it had better be something good. The Uchiha channeled chakra into his arm and converted it into lightning, in an amount massive enough to be visible to the human eye. The manipulated chakra made a loud crackling sound as Sasuke remained still, which changed into something that was similar to twittering birds when he charged towards the large orb containing Gaara, hauling his chakra-covered arm behind him, into the cement arena wall and hard soil and creating a linear crater. Naruto snorted at the overall scene. The jutsu, called Chidori, as Sasuke had shouted out as he began his ill-advised rush, was both pretentious and more or less useless, rather like its present user. An impressive visual display, but he'll be run through long before he gets close enough. The Uchiha managed to surprise him, as Sasuke was able to evade the incoming sand spikes with the Sharingan's insight capabilities and punch through Gaara's cocoon with a single lightning speed thrust. An inhuman howl escaped through the sand shell, and the Ninetales stirred in his place within Naruto's subconscious. The masked shinobi watched as what looked to be a monstrous arm emerged through the hole Sasuke's Chidori had made in the sphere, but an explosion in the cage's viewing area laid sole claim to his attention. The Kazekage had risen in his seat and tossed a smoke bomb onto the ground. Naruto moved and leapt towards the silhouette within, drawing his katana as he soared. Here goes nothing, Senejashu. Orochimaru's outline moved not an inch as several crimson shadow snakes careened towards him, 2 aimed at the snake man and the other 3 aimed to twist in behind him and block his path to the sandime, other than that the head underneath the Kazekage's hat turned to regard the closing Anbu. The 2 serpents coiled around either arm at the elbows, binding the snake Sannin in place. Naruto smiled through his mask as he lunged in and lunged his katana straight at the man's twisted heart. As he penetrated the smoke, he saw the careless smirk on the man's lips. And then, pain became his entire world. The Jinchuriki shrieked in torment, all pride cast aside as a horrendous backlash like none he'd experienced until that point crashed through his juan and he sank to his knees. His katana clattered aside onto the ground as his hands curled wide against his will and his shadow snakes went into similar spasms and released their prisoner. Orochimaru bent down and cupped the young demon carrier's chin, caressing a thumb along the line where his mask ended and his exposed skin began. Ah, poor little Naruto-kun, you can't even hope to battle against me, thanks to that special seal. You see, I don't take to keeping pets that can bite me. You'll have to learn to behave whenever we're together like this, or else you won't like the consequences. Naruto glared into the snake man's eyes, still black due to his wearing the Kazekage's image, through his mask and then exploded into smoke. Meanwhile, in Orochimaru's blind side, the grounded katana likewise exploded into smoke, turning into the real Naruto. The ABNU lunged at the kneeling man's exposed back and impaled him, almost vomiting into his mask with the residual pain that lanced into him through his seal as a consequence. The Kazekage stared down with an astonished expression at the weapon protruding through his chest, and then likewise disintegrated into mud. The Anbu whirled on the spot, watching as an unmasked and sneering Orochimaru rose through the ground behind the Hokage holding a kunai. The serpent man leered over at the young Jinchuriki through golden SS. Not so bad, but not good enough, Naruto-kun. As ecstatic as I am to see you again so soon, I have pressing business with dear old Sarutobi-sensei here, and no more time to waste with you. I've prepared you a special surprise instead, one I'm certain you'll be pleased with. Now then, you'll have to please excuse us. Orochimaru then wrapped a robed arm around the Hokage's shoulders and vanished using a regular shunshin, leaving a swirling smoke cloud in his place and whisking the expressionless Sandaime to parts untold with him. While this happened, Naruto was convulsing on the ground and racked with pain, powerless to block his escape. For a long moment the arena went silent and then the battle began, with shuriken and kunai soaring in the air like locusts, metal clashing against metal all around. Naruto's head pounded in his ears as the masked shinobi used his katana as a brace to stand and leaned against the railing in the cage's box, each breath causing his lungs to hurt due to the cursed seal's malice. Damn! Naruto said nothing else as he looked down over the arena, where the civilian spectators in the crowd, as well as several known shinobi, were asleep in their seats while those still awake were locked in battle with camo-garbed Oto shinobi in the stands. 3 masked Anbu soared past his current position onto the building's top. Forcing down a pained grimace, the Kyuubi vessel moved in behind them and watched as one attempted to leap into a strange purple barrier that enclosed Sarutobi and Orochimaru atop the nearest building, and was reduced to smoldering ashes in a mere instant. 4 robed Oto nin wearing purple rope sashes stood at each corner and looked to be powering whatever jutsu kept the barrier active. The sword Jinchuriki blanched with an incredulous expression under his mask as he observed that the sound shinobi standing nearest him had 6 arms. We won't be able to reach Hokage-sama as long as that barrier is in place. One unknown Anbu spoke to his 2 teammates, their last member being the one incinerated on Orochimaru's barrier. The demon carrier looked to the side on hearing his own captain's voice behind him. Yamato landed, with Yugao and Shiyuku behind. 5 additional masked shinobi, a 3rd team landed near them. None among them bothered to reprimand Naruto about his impulsive solo attack, though he was certain that Yugao shot him a scathing look through her mask. The demon carrier had no apologies to give, his standing orders had been to neutralize the snake Sannin. Right, so we're going to assist with protecting the village and spectators instead. The 3rd team's leader spoke what Naruto was thinking but unwilling to state outright. The rookie imagined the others held the same sentiment as well, though none as much as he. The Jinchuriki owed the old man so much, and had botched his duties once as it was. Leaving was the last thing he wanted to do, especially to protect those worthless villagers who didn't even deserve a protector like Sarutobi. The other ANBU's voice was a low growl. Don't be ridiculous, Yamato. We won't abandon the Hokage. Protecting him is the main reason our organization exists. Yamato's tone was one that brooked no argument. Naruto was reminded that, though an unassuming and polite person in general, the man was a trained Kur and the highest-ranking Anbu operative under the Sandaime Hokage, and was more than able and willing to rule through terror should the need arise. These are Hokage-sama's own orders that he handed to me last night, and we all will honor them no matter what. Squad 2 is to secure the nobles on the low ground. Squad 3 will remain here and attempt to break past this barrier, and engage the Oto nin commander, Orochimaru once done. The 2 other units all nodded with varying enthusiasm, those assigned to the aristocrats not being too pleased with having to leave the Sandaime. As that squad advanced down towards the stands, several sound shinobi closed in to intercept them. The Anbu withdrew their katana and SD apart Orochimaru's men with ease, and a bare-masked lieutenant looked down on his team's last victims with undisguised contempt. HMPH, you garbage won't stand against us. Meanwhile, Yamato turned to regard Naruto, staring at him with his patented, wide, ghost stare. Shiyuku gave a shudder even though the strange look wasn't aimed at him. The intimidating visual seemed to calm the Biju container's aching Juin somewhat. While not too bothersome to the rookie operative, the look was enough to tell him that his captain was less than pleased with his earlier rashness. Naruto sheathed his assassination katana, which he now became aware that he was still brandishing, and met his captain's stare. Tensai, we will chase down and neutralize Ichibi no Tanuki. Our respective strengths make us the ideal pair to counter the Jinchuriki Gaara. Yugao will be unit commander here until we return. The now acting commander protested her superior's actions. Naruto looked down into the ring again, now realizing that Gaara was gone, as was Sasuke. Shiranui Genma and Baki were battling to a more or less even standstill, and the masked shinobi wondered whether Yugao was even aware that her lover's mare was so close to her present location. He wouldn't think that she would be wasting time arguing with Yamato in such a case. Teiko, we can't divide our unit like that, even though the target is a single genin. Yamato silenced her with an outstretched palm, as Naruto had seen the Hokage do on countless occasions to others. We also can't waste an entire unit to pursue one rogue shinobi. Our SKS are needed elsewhere too. We must protect Hokage Sama's interests and work to repel this invasion. Tensai and I will be more than enough to accomplish this mission. No more argument. The Mokuton user leapt down into the stands, and Naruto, though his mind was bordering on mutinous at having to leave the Sandaime to battle Orochimaru on his own behind that barrier, went behind his Teiko without a word. The pair landed near the terrace overlooking the actual combat arena, near where Uchiha Sasuke had torn through the concrete with his new Chidori technique. You should not have attempted to engage alone. Your actions were too reckless. Yamato spoke in a low tone while he looked over the area. Naruto glimpsed a large hole in the wall behind the upper rows, near which Kakashi and Meito Gai stood back to back pummeling Otonin with ease, looking to be keeping a running count in some inappropriate competition. Next to him, Ayami was hunched over in her seat sleeping. The Jinchuriki had to assume that someone was using a strong genjutsu to lull the spectators into a slumber. Naruto's gloved hand reached out on its own and touched her cheek as she lay there motionless, running a thumb over her lips. At least the hostiles weren't targeting the civilians, though the demon carrier wouldn't have ever cared less had a single person in particular not been among them. I had an opening and I took it. All I regret is that I wasn't able to kill the bastard. Naruto answered with an uncaring shrug when Yamato cleared his tea, held his hand back as though someone had held a hot iron to it. Additional pain coursing within his cursed seal exacerbated the Biju container's situation. The Mokuton wielder seemed to accept his brooding lieutenant's answer, however, as he let the matter pass with that. Yugao wouldn't be placated with such ease, Naruto mused with a shudder. While not as insane, the violet-haired Kunoichi could inspire as much terror as Anko when motivated. We'll exit the arena through that opening in the wall. Let's get moving, while we still have a chance to overtake the target. As Yamato spoke, an Otonin rushed at his back with a kunai. Naruto stretched his hand out and let his shadow snake soar, grabbing the shinobi in midair and slamming him into a wooden bench at terminal speed, shattering the sound nin's spine and causing several bones to stick out through the man's skin. The younger Anbu retracted his attack and moved to look out into Konoha through the hole in the wall. The view led right into the massive wood that surrounded the village on one side. Near Guy and Kakashi, both Sakura and Ino were huddled behind a bench observing the brouhaha in the arena. Further down, Shikamaru seemed to be caught in the genjutsu, sleeping like a dog on the ground. Thinking about dogs, he didn't see Kiba in the stands. Naruto looked at the two girls and wiped the sweat at his hairline, and then gave his captain a sidelong glance. Not sure how we're going to find Gaara, he could have gone in countless directions. A second sound nin attempted to attack the Jinchuriki in his blind spot, but even as he was preparing to react to the sudden motion, a thick tree limb sprouted through a small crack in the concrete steps and tangled around the approaching shinobi. Yamato clenched his hand and the branch twisted and broke the masked person's end with a snap. The cloth mask tumbled to the ground, revealing a girl not much older than Naruto or his previous teammates. Neither Anbu bothered to spare much remorse on her account. Perhaps I could render assistance in that matter. Both captain and lieutenant turned to the whispered voice hidden in the shadows. Aberrane Shino stared back at the duo behind his ever-present sunglasses. Yamato regarded the insect user with a curious expression, or so Naruto guessed, as he could see his eyes and nothing else due to his mask. The demon carrier was somewhat less receptive to whatever Shino was proposing, not caring to bring a genin along on his mission. Meanwhile, he ducked as Guy sent another shinobi soaring towards him with a vicious kick. Explain what you mean, kid. I'm aware that aberrane bugs have sharp senses, but our target has a substantial lead on us even now. We don't have time to sport with chance. Shino pushed his shades up his nose, and spoke with his usual near-silent monotone. Uchiha Sasuke pursued the hidden sand team earlier as well, during their retreat. I succeeded in planting several insects on him as he passed, and so I can locate him with ease. Find Sasuke and we should also locate Sabaku no Gaara. However, we should leave now or else we might be too late. Naruto thought that, too late, had come, given Gaara's nature. Sasuke's little Chidori trick might have availed something against an unbalanced and unprepared Suna genin, but against a raging Shukaku, it would be less than worthless. The masked shinobi was less than pleased about now rescuing the Uchiha, but since it coincided with his own mission he saw no need to complain about it. The demon carrier likewise had some semantic issues with Shino coming out telling him and Yamato what the two Anbu should do, though he did realize that he and his Teiko needed the Abarame's tracking expertise to have a chance at success. Don't think to give us commands, Genin. We're. Like he did Yugao earlier, Yamato silenced Naruto with a raised hand. That will be enough, Tensai. We will not spurn this gesture. We will accept your proposal and we appreciate your help, Abarame-san. Shino nodded and used the Konoha Shunshin to escape the arena. Yamato did likewise. Naruto began to use his Akuma Shunshin to keep pace but hesitated a second, turning back to look over to where Sarutobi and Orochimaru were exchanging verbal barbs behind the purple barrier. The Jinchuriki palmed the pendant around his en, the simple wooden adornment that Anko had given him. Doing so seemed to silence his due into a passive ache, and Naruto uttered a slight wish as he vanished in a red chakra swirl. Please don't S on me, old man. XXXXXXXXXX. As the two Anbu and one Genin moved into the trees to pursue Gaara and his siblings, a single character observed their movements while perched on a building near the arena. He wore a lavender shirt tied with the purple rope sash that marked Orochimaru's personal guard, with long silver hair and a cursed seal marring his chest, and red mascara under his expressionless green eyes, and two identical red dots marking his brow. As he prepared to pursue his assigned target, several other shinobi appeared at his location. Kaguya Kimimuro's thin lips compressed into a disapproving scowl as the orphaned Mist Nin craned his pale, slender end to stare through cold emerald spheres at his unwanted guests, 9 other warriors under the Snake Sanon's command. This interruption had best be important, shinobi. Kimimuro spoke to the team's leader in particular, demanding a prompt response. Kimimuro-sama. Kabuto-san has ordered us to assist with your mission to Kei Uzumaki Naruto. We await your commands. Kimimaro stared back at the masked ensemble with revulsion shining in his eyes. The skies began to darken overhead, indicating a coming rainstorm. Orochimaru's most scared assassin returned his complete attention to the woods, an unspoken dismissal. HMPH, trash shinobi like you rabble are no use to me. Leave me, go back to Kabuto. Your mere presence disgusts me. The less prudent among the assembled group glared with hatred at Kimimaro, but their leader checked his men with a stern gesture, knowing that this slender little teenager with his back exposed to them with such nonchalant arrogance could S them all with complete ease. Swallowing his pride, the grizzled warrior bowed low to the young man. Understood. We wish you good luck in your battle, Kimimaro-sama. The Oto squad captain gestured his men to withdraw, but a single word stopped them. Wait, perhaps I can use you. I want you all to close in advance and stall the other two shinobi who are traveling with the target and I will engage Uzumaki Naruto in a duel as per Orochimaru-sama's instructions. I have no interest whatsoever in coping with a combined assault, and so you will make certain that the prime target and I are not interrupted as we battle. The masked team leader gave Kimimaro a crisp salute. The younger man did nothing to acknowledge or return the gesture. Everything will be as you command. We won't let you down. Orochimaru's assassin and the Sound Five's leader responded with a contemptuous snort. See that you do not. Fail Orochimaru-sama and death will be your reward, trash. The man gulped and motioned his team into the woods. Kimimaro looked into the clouds, smiling a little when the sprinkle began and several raindrops landed on his skin. The Sound Five's commander raised his arm and stared with complete composure as several sharp bones protruded through his wrist, turning his right hand into a stabbing weapon. The chi no Juan on his chest radiated with an ominous glow as he turned to look at the barrier behind which Orochimaru attempted to settle his oldest score, and then back to the woods where fate awaited him. Uzumaki Naruto, we will discover who has the right to exist and who is mere garbage. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.